On a September night in 1957, residents of an apartment complex in Joliet, Illinois, heard a woman's screams. The next morning, they would learn that one of their neighbors had vanished without a trace. The only thing she'd seemingly left behind was a pair of her shoes. Let's talk about Molly Zelko, who hasn't been seen or heard from in almost 65 years. Amelia Jo Zelko, better known as Molly, was born in 1910 in Joliet. She was one of 6 children, and her parents were Slovenian immigrants. When Molly was 17, she went to work for a lawyer named William McCabe. She stayed with him throughout his career, which included a brief period as the state's attorney of Will County. In 1936, he bought a paper called The Spectator, which Molly both reported for and co-owned. According to the Spectator podcast, which examines Molly's case in depth, McCabe bought the paper to influence public opinion and fight corruption, and Molly seemingly wanted the same things. Both she and the newspaper had a reputation for exposing things like illegal gambling and mob activity. Molly was also harsh on policemen who metaphorically looked the other way at illegal gambling, which was something she was especially against. Molly often went to extreme lengths to get what she perceived as justice. She was aggressive and tenacious in her reporting, and there were rumors of her engaging in things like blackmail and character assassination. She was known to illegally wiretap lines and record conversations on at least a couple of occasions. These recordings couldn't be used in court, of course, but that was likely never her goal anyway. Another account from one of her coworkers alleges she blackmailed the owner of a bowling alley into buying ad space in The Spectator in exchange for keeping quiet about a city ordinance he was violating. In 1948, Molly's boss, William McCabe, was severely beaten with baseball bats. This wasn't the first time the now 65-year-old had been physically attacked, but it seemed to be the worst, leaving him with multiple broken bones and other complications he never fully recovered from. After this attack, Molly took over operations at The Spectator and became obsessed with finding out who had attacked her boss. Both of them believed the attack was retaliation for their anti-gambling stance, a position Molly only cracked down on after this. On Wednesday, September 25th, 1957, a now 47-year-old Molly arrived at work around 7 a.m. The Spectator was printed on Thursdays, so Wednesdays were busy, with employees making all the final preparations. On this day, Molly spent a noticeably long time in her office making private phone calls, something that apparently didn't happen much. But other than that, nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. Molly didn't leave work until around 11:30 that night. Before she left, she told one of her coworkers she would see them in the morning. Molly's car was seen parked in front of her apartment building by 11:40 p.m. Neighbors would later report hearing screams sometime between then and 12:15 a.m., but they wrote them off as coming from noisy kids. The next morning, one of Molly's coworkers called her at home. This was customary for them, but this time there was no answer. Around 6 a.m., her coworkers drove to her apartment and found her shoes outside, one on the trunk of her car, the other one close by on the ground. Molly had always told friends that if she ever felt like she was in danger or thought someone was pursuing her, she would kick off her shoes and run. Around 11 a.m., a locksmith was called and opened the door to Molly's apartment, but she wasn't inside. William McCabe called the police. Investigators who arrived on the scene also found no traces of Molly and nothing out of place. She didn't even appear to have slept in her bed the night before. Her car keys were found under the driver's side door of the car, where she always kept them. A search of her office also found very little out of place. The only thing missing was a packet of letters and photos she told family members they should take if anything ever happened to her. Her office must have already been unlocked because the key to it was never found. A witness would claim she'd seen men in a black car burning a woman's body near Molly's apartment, but this incident was never confirmed. Early on in the investigation, William McCabe and several of Molly's friends contacted the FBI, requesting that they get involved. According to an article in the Daily Illini, McCabe was afraid Molly had been kidnapped because of the underlying gangster and criminal background in the area. The FBI initially declined to get involved, saying there was no evidence that any federal laws had been broken. Ultimately, though, they did conduct their own investigation. They followed up on some alleged sightings of Molly, but this never led anywhere. In 1958, a man named James Rennie told the FBI that he was involved in Molly's disappearance. Rennie, who was in prison for robbery at the time, said he was the driver in the operation and that Molly had been kidnapped, shot, covered with lime, and buried. He led investigators to the area where he said her body was, but they found nothing there. After leading them to a second dig site, Rennie reportedly said, "May I have syphilis of the eyes, and may my mother be a whore if she isn't buried here." Molly wasn't buried there, and Rennie later claimed his confession was a hoax. William McCabe died in August of 1958. Over the next couple of years, the leads in Molly's case slowed to a standstill, with people reportedly afraid to talk about it for fear of retaliation from the mob, who they believed was responsible. Molly was declared legally dead in 1964. In 1978, a bartender reported seeing Molly on the night she'd gone missing. According to this bartender, Molly arrived at the bar, which was close to the Spectator office, just after leaving work. She bought a drink and used a payphone on her way out. It's not clear why the bartender waited so long to report this alleged sighting, or if the call Molly made here was related to the phone calls she had made at work earlier that day. The incident also had to have happened very quickly. Remember, Molly left work around 11:30 p.m. and was home by 11:40 p.m., which would have allowed her only about 10 minutes to stop at this bar, get a drink, and make a phone call. This is a very short time frame, but it is certainly possible that she did all of this in 10 minutes. The Spectator later folded, and the building was torn down and eventually rebuilt. Ironically, the building across the street from the old Spectator offices is now a casino, something Molly and her old boss probably wouldn't have been too thrilled with. In 2004, a couple who lived in Molly's old neighborhood found a bathtub filled with concrete in their backyard. Detectives spent 2 hours smashing the bathtub in an attempt to find human remains, but there was nothing there. In the years following Molly's disappearance, her case has been the subject of a folk song and inspiration for a mystery novel called One Shoe Off. In 2019, the Joliet Area Historical Museum and the Joliet Public Library produced the previously mentioned podcast, The Spectator. The podcast ran for 8 episodes and, as I mentioned earlier, does a pretty deep dive into the case. Links to it and the book can be found in the description. So, what happened to Molly Zelko? Let's talk theories and some speculation. The first theory is that Molly left voluntarily. This is the theory the FBI believed in the early days of the investigation. A friend of Molly's named William Wilson also thought this was the case. William McCabe, Molly's boss, never fully recovered from his 1948 attack and had complications from it for the rest of his life. And remember, he died less than a year after Molly's disappearance, and there was a good chance she knew he wouldn't live much longer. She also didn't get along too well with his family, namely his daughters. There has been speculation that Molly left on her own because she didn't want to deal with McCabe's family in the aftermath of his death. However, this theory has its holes, namely the fact that Molly likely would have come back for major events like her father's death. The next theory is that Molly was killed in a robbery gone wrong. When she was last seen, she was reportedly wearing both an expensive diamond ring and a bracelet. The ring was later found and returned to her family, but if she did have the bracelet on, did someone try to steal it? Based on what little I've researched about Molly, she doesn't seem like the kind of person to just take something like that lying down. Did she try to fight back and fail? But the most prominent theory is that Molly was kidnapped and or killed by one of her enemies. Molly angered a lot of people in her career, people she either exposed or possibly even defamed. Did one of them end up taking their anger too far and hurt her? Molly was afraid of something like this happening. She often spoke to family and friends about how she felt like someone was following or even stalking her. In one particular incident, she crossed the street as her brother stood nearby with a shotgun at her request. One possibility is that a local man named Francis Curry was responsible for Molly's disappearance. Better known as the Thin Man, Curry was known to have connections with the mob, an entity that is often theorized to be responsible as well. Molly suspected Curry as being involved in the 1948 attack on McCabe, and she even went so far as to go to his house during events and write down the license plate numbers of all of his guests. And Curry wasn't oblivious to the suspicions surrounding him. He even asked police if he was a suspect in Molly's case. But regardless of how Molly actually went missing, where is she now? Speculation ranges from her being buried under an overpass or a concrete bridge to being thrown in a body of water. Very few clues have been found and almost none that suggest her whereabouts. There is one more piece of speculation I wanted to touch on, and that is the idea that Molly and William McCabe, who was married, were having an affair. They were very close and spent a lot of time together. Like I mentioned earlier, Molly didn't get along well with McCabe's daughters, despite being close to their father. Did they possibly want the share of the paper that she was supposed to get someday? Or could they have known about a secret affair, or at least suspected it? While I do find this line of speculation interesting, I've never seen anyone explicitly state that a potential affair could have been related to her disappearance. And of course, remember that is all this is, speculation. There is no solid evidence to support it. Amelia Jo Zelko, better known as Molly, was 47 years old when she was last seen in Joliet, Illinois, on the evening of September 25th, 1957. Molly was a white female who was about 5 feet 4 inches tall and 120 pounds at the time of her disappearance, with brown hair and eyes. She might have been wearing a diamond bracelet and a hat when she was last seen. Molly would be around 111 years old today, so she is almost certainly no longer alive. At this point, her family simply wants answers to find out where her remains are and give her a proper burial.